Hey, how's it going? Um, Saw an article that caught my eye. This is an interesting one that I haven't really heard anybody talk about yet. It's from the Daily Mail. And it says that Switzerland may abandon centuries of neutrality over the Ukraine war after accusations that sitting on the fence was effectively siding with Russia. Um, this is kind of big to me. Uh, Switzerland, like they say in the article, has been neutral for almost over 200 years. It was first put into place within a treaty in 1907, but for them to even consider to start wobbling on their neutrality is quite a big deal. Switzerland is a tremendous financial powerhouse. They have a lot of banks. They have a lot of military equipment. Actually, they make a lot of military weapons that for some reason they never sell to people because they're neutral. Which, again, it's like, do they really not sell them? They just sell them during peacetime, and that makes you neutral because you don't sell them during the wartime. You just stock people up when they're preparing for war. Anyway, it says a pro-Ukraine shift in public and political mood pressures the Swiss government. They call for an end to a ban which stops exports of Swiss weapons to war zones. So this is a movement coming from the people and mostly from financial profit standpoint type of thing. And remember, who is in Switzerland? Davos is in Switzerland. The World Economic Forum is headquartered in Davos. They are basically a Swiss entity, which is interesting. Russia's talking about denazifying the EU. Um, I don't know. There might be parallels there. Maybe they actually see Russia as a direct threat to the Swiss, whereas Germany during like World War II, World War One wasn't necessarily as such because they have such strong ties to Germany. However, they really don't with Russia. So it could be a factor in them maybe deciding to give up their neutrality. But anyway, the uh, the article reads that Switzerland is close to breaking a centuries old tradition as a neutral state after they are accused of sitting on the fence with the war on Ukraine and in turn siding with Russia. A pro Ukraine shift in the public and political mood has put pressure on the Swiss government to end the ban on exports of Swiss weapons to war zones. So it's not like they're mobilizing their military to help fight people, but they are considering selling weapons in wartime to one side and not the other, which is an abandonment of their neutrality. Buyers of Swiss arms are legally prevented from re exporting them, a restriction that some representing the country's large weapons industry says is now hurting trade. Yeah, that pesky war. We can't sell weapons during the war, right? That's really hurting our pocketbooks. Maybe we should abandon our traditions in order to keep our profits afloat. Third countries can, in theory, apply to re export Swiss weapons they have in their stocks, but permission is almost always denied. This could prevent nations from providing weapons to Ukraine, which would be to Russia's advantage. So apparently, a lot of countries buy their weapons through the Swiss and then use them in their own military. Um, Thierry Burkhardt, leader of the center-right FDP party, has submitted a motion to the government to allow arms re-exports to countries with similar democratic values to Switzerland. Burkhardt said, "We want to be neutral, but we are part of the Western world. We wouldn't have the veto to stop others helping Ukraine. If we do that, we support Russia, which is not a neutral position." So you're not selling weapons to either of them at the moment. That's neutral. But by not selling weapons to Ukraine, you're somehow supporting Russia? I don't know about that. Other countries want to support Ukraine and do something for the security and stability of Europe. They cannot understand why Switzerland has to say no. So again, World War II, World War One, Europe kind of started the brawl. This one, Russia, which is half European, but not really, they're more Asian than European, picked the fight. So this may tilt Switzerland, which is a big deal. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of weapons, they have a tremendous amount of influence over the global elites through the WEF and Davos. So it's interesting. Under Swiss neutrality, which dates back to 1815, so 208 years, and is enshrined by treaty in 1907, Switzerland will not send weapons directly or indirectly to combatants in war. It operates a separate embargo on arms sales to Ukraine and Russia. So they're currently, again, they're not supplying weapons to either. Calls from Switzerland's European neighbors to allow such transfers to Kiev have meanwhile grown louder as Russia's assault intensifies, and Parliament's two security committees recommended that the rules be eased accordingly. So, the two security meetings, the people making a whole bunch of money who have their budgets slashed potentially if they can't continue to selling weapons to people during peacetime, are interested in starting to sell weapons to one side or the other. That makes sense. I mean, this is probably a big nothing burger. It's probably nothing that's going to go on. These type of talks happened during World War II all the time, where Switzerland was embroiled in internal conflict on whether they should support one side or the other. This always happens. But this is the first I'm hearing about it in this current conflict. And like I said, the parameters of this conflict are different. Lawmakers are divided on the issue, but a survey by pollsters Satomo showed 55% of respondents favor allowing weapons re-exports to Ukraine. Now, I'm not sure how Swiss government works. They probably need a bigger majority than just a simple majority. But, and again, surveys and polls, those are kind of, take those with a grain of salt. It's like, who's funding the survey? Who's funding the poll? What do the people who are funding the poll and the survey, what outcome do they want? You always have to take that into consideration when you're looking at poll results. Co-director of pollsters GFS Bern, Lucas Golder, said if we had asked this question before the war, the response would have been probably less than 25%. Talking about changing neutrality was a taboo in the past. So the dude directing the poll says that a larger amount of people want to fund Ukraine, which would make sense. It would make sense that more people want to fund Ukraine after the war starts. But that is a big statistic, if it even is a statistic, because he's just saying if we had asked this question before the war, like, they didn't actually conduct a poll. They didn't give a potential for what would happen in the future. He's just kind of spitballing here. So it sounds like a guy who's trying to make money. The government, under pressure from abroad after rejecting German and Danish requests for permission to re-export Swiss armored vehicles and ammunition for anti-aircraft tanks, said it would not prejudice parliamentary decisions. A spokesperson for the Department of Economic Affairs, which oversees arms-related trade issues, said, Bern adheres to the existing legal framework and will deal with the proposals in due course. So, again, this isn't definite. This is just the start of something that could turn into something else. If Switzerland's border is actually in danger of encroachment by the Russians, I imagine their stance would change dramatically. But the fact that they're starting to air this stuff out is indicative of a certain escalation in Europe, especially with, again, 200 plus years of neutrality from Switzerland. So I'm just kind of putting this out there as a thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind. If you hear more about it, then maybe start to get, I don't know, a little more interested in it. But at the moment, it sounds like the war hawks and the people making the weapons, who are looking at their profits shrinking now that an actual war has begun, are trying to put pressure on the government and the politicians in order to, salvage their profit, especially with a global recession that we're teetering on the brink of. We've already entered it, really, but they've changed the definition of recession so many times since we entered the recession that a lot of people aren't really sure about, what that actually entails. So something to keep your eye on, something to think about. If Switzerland does abandon their neutrality, that'd be a big blow to Russia. It'd be a big boon for NATO and the EU, and could very well escalate things even more. And these are just all kind of dominoes that have been set up over the past 50 years, and we're starting to see them topple. So if Switzerland gives up their neutrality, that's huge. That's big. So something to think about, something to look at, and thank you to the Daily Mail. Have a good one.